Good morning, beautiful people. President Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene, as this shutdown continues, there's some things to talk about. Everything I share is for fair use purposes only, for us to critique and not to cause division. Okay? Everything is for fair use. Oh, let's see. What do I need to do? Uh-oh. Wait a second. What do I... I did something here. How do I get... So what I'm trying to do. I did something wrong. Hold on. Good morning, Pink Cats. I'm having some technical difficulties right now. I can't remember how to remove myself from the stage, so I gotta figure this out. Now, how do I remove myself? So, put me here. There we go. Yeah. How you doing, Pink Cats? All right, let's go. Wait, you guys can't hear. Here we go.
A little bit, I don't know. I like that idea, sir. But we could raise it. But we have so many people want to join, and they're proud of our country again. JD, could I ask you to say a few words?
Yes, sir. So just a couple of things. Mr. President, first of all, congratulations on yesterday. It was a big day to Marco, to Susie, to the entire team. But in particular, viewing it from this perspective where
I hope y'all can hear
months,
it.
the fake news media attacked you, attacked the entire team, attacked your approach. You know, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. The reason we're here is because the president actually charted a different course with a different team. He vested a lot of authority in Steve Witkoff in particular, and that's why we're here. It's because you did something different, and I think it's important to recognize that. I also think the president, you know, Marco mentioned the president's personal touch being a big part of this. And one thing I would say is obviously the president of the United States, a New York real estate millionaire, one of the most famous New Yorkers in the world, has a lot of interaction with a lot of people who are very pro-Israel. I think that was an important set of experiences and life experiences that he brought to the table. He also, of course, knew one of the most famous Palestinians in the world, Chuck Schumer. And I think without that of knowledge, it would have been impossible to get us to this point. Second thing I would say, just on Chuck Schumer, the president mentioned this, that Chuck Schumer said this has been very good for us this morning about the shutdown. One of the things that we talked about before all the media came in, and that all of us are going to work on for the rest of the day, we've been working on for days, is how to make the shutdown as painless as possible on the American people. So while Chuck Schumer brags about this being good, and I think the president is right, it's not good for him politically as much as he might think that it is. It's causing real consequences for the American people. There's a low-income food program, the WIC program, that my mom actually used when I was a baby. That program is about to be underfunded, and it's about to get cut off because Chuck Schumer won't open the government. We have troops. Secretary of War mentioned how well we're doing on recruitment. We're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer is shutting down the U.S. government. There are veterans benefits that are going to suffer. There are Americans that are going to suffer because Chuck Schumer refuses to do his job. So while we're all celebrating this incredible success that we've had on the world stage, the country could be doing so much better if Chuck Schumer did his job and opened the government. Every single Republican, except for Rand Paul, has voted to open the government. A few moderate Democrats, to their credit, have voted with us to open the government. We just need 5 more Democrats to come to their senses and let the people's government serve the American people. I hope that they'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chris,
Yeah, to follow up on that point, Mr. President, the Democrat or Schumer shutdown did not begin 8 or 9 days ago. It began 8 or 9 months ago with your inauguration. For the first time in American history, every Senate confirmed appointee who are our deputies to run our department, every one of them has been filibustered. One of the critical parts of my department is the National Nuclear Security Administration. It maintains, manufactures our nuclear weapons and our engines for nuclear the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, let him come into my department until the Republicans 2 weeks ago changed the Senate rules so they could confirm them and we could have a leader. They filibustered the leadership, now they're filibustering the funding. In the next 6-7 days, we're going to run out of funding, and the retooling of our nuclear stockpile, the ultimate guarantor of our sovereignty, is going to be underfunded, and we're going to have to slow down and creep to a crawl these efforts. Just incredibly irresponsible for Schumer to worry about his own reelection and not the 340 million Americans that count on the efforts of our military and all of our departments. It's truly offensive, and we need to bring it to an end as soon as possible. Let's open the government back up.
And you're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Bobby, did you want to say something? There's a lot of things happening. A lot of very positive.
There's a lot more to this, but
I'm glad you're getting
I wanted to just
accolades on the Mideast
start from
agreement.
here.
You should also get bipartisan accolades on the MFN agreement. It is a historic agreement that's going to benefit every hardworking American. It's going to lower the price of drugs for every American. By the time this administration is over, we will have 95% of the drugs in this country will be the lowest price in the world. It immediately begins to affect Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, the other government programs. I remember when I went through the confirmation process, and the principal preoccupation of the Democrats during that process was whether I would continue the IRA negotiations on drugs. The Democrats negotiated 10 drugs. I'm supposed to negotiate every year 15. The 10 that they negotiated, they claimed to get a 22% reduction, but it was a lie. It was 22% under the list price, which was actually higher than the price we were getting. Medicaid, Medicare ended up paying more for those drugs than they were getting beforehand. They only got a benefit on one drug. One was tied. 8 of them were low. So they should be applauding what we're doing now. We're doing something that every administration, Democrat, Republican, has been saying that it was going to do for decades, and you got it done because you understood the power of the tariffs. We had leverage over these companies. You did it in a way which you asked us to do, to negotiate in a way that was not going to stifle innovation, that was going to make sure that those companies could bring their production home, and they are doing that. And it was a profound success. It will affect every American for 100 years. And you should be getting bipartisan accolades on that. I'll say one other thing about Tylenol, only because of this. This morning before I came in here, somebody showed me a TikTok video of a pregnant woman, 8 months pregnant. She is an associate professor at the Columbia Medical School. And she is saying F Trump and gobbling Tylenol with her baby in her placenta. And the level of Trump derangement syndrome has now left the political landscapes, and it is now in the realm of pathology. And a mother could overwhelm millions of years of maternal instinct to put her baby at risk. And all you have to do is look at the studies which you and I talked about. It's not this positive that causes autism. It is so suggestive that anybody who takes stuff during pregnancy, unless they have to, is irresponsible. There are 15 rodent studies. Every one of them shows if you give it to the mother, the babies, and particularly the male babies, have profound neurological and behavioral changes. There is a study from Johns Hopkins on cord blood where they divided women into 3 categories: those who had the least to secret benefit in their cord blood, and those who had the most. The ones with the most had 3.6 times the rate of autism in their children. The middle category had 2.2 times, so it's a dose-related response. And there are dozens of studies that show the countries that use the most of the highest level of autism. Cuba has the lowest level in the world of assisted benefit use, and it has the lowest autism rate in the world. Oh, this is not just positive. It is not proof. We're doing the studies to make the proof. But in the meantime, the precautionary principle should apply. And any mother who is taking this stuff during pregnancy just to get back at Donald Trump is doing something that is pathological. And we're seeing that across the board. I got a lot of other stuff to talk about, but I know we got a short time here. But thank you, Mr. President. You're making our country healthier.
Thank you, Bobby. Could you just for the record state what the autism was, let's say 20 years ago, and what it is today?
In 1970, the largest epidemiological study in history was performed. 900,000 kids were looked at. They were looking for autism in Wisconsin children. They looked at every child in Wisconsin who was 8 years old. They found an autism rate of 0.7 per 10,000. So almost close to 1 in 20,000, less than 1 in 10,000. Today, the autism rates are nationally at 131, but it's actually much worse than that because California, which has the best collection system, reports an autism rate of 1 in every 19 children, 1 in every 12.5 boys. This is a national security issue. There is nothing more important, and I'm grateful to you, Mr. President, because you know the flack that you take for talking about this issue. You've shown courage and you've shown leadership, and I can't thank you enough for letting me do this work.
Thank you. So think of that, 1 in 20,000, and now it's 1 in 12 for boys, 1 in 18, 19 for girls. So obviously there's something that's artificially, I think, induced, something, whether it's the vaccines in terms of these massive vaccines that are twice the size of a jar like that.
Misspell the curse words.
Water like that into a baby's body. And I've
Thank you.
suggested get them in doses, get them in, maybe 20%, 30%, but smaller, not such a big. I think, that. And we had certain recommendations, the MMR, take them separately. The measles is already separate now, and it works out much better. But there doesn't seem to be any impact if you take it separately. If you take it as a combination, it's not so great. And some other things. But I would say don't take Tylenol if you're pregnant, and when the baby is born, don't give it Tylenol. You can avoid it at all. Just don't give it Tylenol.
I'll say this.
Really, what do you have to lose? You really don't have much to lose.
There's many other confirmation studies. There's 2 studies that show children who are circumcised early have double the rate of autism. And it's highly likely because they're given Tylenol. So, none of this is just positive, but all of it is stuff that we should be paying attention to.
But, there's a tremendous amount of proof or evidence. I would say, it's a non-doctor, but I've studied this a long time ago. I met Bobby in my office 20 years ago. We were talking about the same thing 20 years ago. And I was a real estate developer. It bothered me that it seemed to be getting worse, but it's so bad now when you hear these numbers. It's not even really sustainable. I don't know how people do it, but there is some very strong evidence on Tylenol. In fact, at one point, I guess the company gave a warning. They
still don't recommend it during pregnancy.
They're not recommending it. And that's the company itself. So just don't take it. Don't take it. If you're a woman, don't take it, and don't give it to the baby when the baby's born. And I think that's going to have an impact. But I'd also get the shots in smaller doses. And there are a few things that just seem to be, and I think you'd get that number way back up. Think of it. You have 1 in 20,000, and now it's not even believable when you think that 20,000 drops to 12 children. So that's induced by something that's given or taken, and it should be able to be stopped. And you're talking about the Pennsylvania Dutch. You were talking about the Amish, where they don't take any of this stuff, and they have virtually none, right? They have no autism. So we're doing something very bad. Somebody's been given some bad things. Other countries, by the way, we have 82 vaccines that we give simultaneously. And I'm a vaccine believer, by the way. I believe in the polio vaccine. I believe in a lot of vaccines. But when you give 82 vaccines and a shot to a little baby that hasn't even formed yet, it's a lot of vaccines. And in Japan, they give a much smaller number. In Germany, they give a much smaller, like 28 vaccines. That's a lot too, but 28 is a lot different than 82. So, but I would say on the Tylenol, don't take it, and that will be. I think it's going to be a big factor. I think it'll be a very good result, and I hope we're going to be able to see that result in the not too distant future. Because certainly, people have heard us loud and clear. That's why I bring it up again. That's why I asked you to talk about it, because this is a horrible thing, and if you don't take it, I mean, you have to tough it through sometimes. There are other things you can do, but you have to tough it out. It's easy for me to say, but I think you're going to see numbers that will be it'll be so significantly improved, and maybe fully improved. I mean, there's something there. There's something going on, and we have to address it. And so I'm addressing it the best I can as a non-doctor, but I'm a man of common sense.
We'll take a 2-minute break. You will not miss
All right, you guys.
anything. We'll take
Woo, that is a
back out
lot.
to the White House cabinet meeting.
That's a lot. As the government continues to stay shut down, I don't know. I'll come back. Let me go back a little bit while they're doing that.
Some fire.
We'll go back to it though.
Sky at this point.
Unified school
Look at Newsom, our California governor. I'm in California.
Others are beneficiaries of this, but I'm not just asserting a point. I'm also here to make a point that was highlighted with an independent review of the first cohort of those receiving the benefits of community schools, where we saw extraordinary improvement in reducing suspensions, reducing chronic absenteeism, improvements in math, and that has been stubborn for us in this state, and ELA.
Right, hyperslob, this dude. If only y'all knew.
It's working. And now we're seeing that scaled all across the state of California. But that's just one of the unprecedented investments we have been making. You heard referenced a moment ago that every 4-year-old now has access to a brand new grade. We created a brand new grade, TK for all. We say this often. People aren't left behind, they start behind. So you've got to begin at the beginning. And that's why it was essential that we lay that platform and we develop a new framework, an expectation, TK to 12. In that respect, we also were mindful of quality. It's not just the inputs as it relates to access, but it's quality. $2.1 billion was invested on an annual basis in this space, but an additional $1.2 billion was invested in getting the teacher-student ratios down.
Okay.
And that investment remained, even despite some difficult budget years, from 12 to 1 this last year to 10 to 1. This is not happening.
I really don't like Newsom.
Just looking as an analyst would look at this, I think BB should be very popular right now. Yeah, please.
What will happen if Hamas says that it cannot locate or was not able to find all of the deceased hostages' bodies within the time frame?
I think that's going to be largely been answered. We know where most of them are. Actually, the bodies are a bigger problem because some of the bodies are going to be a little bit hard to find. It's a terrible thing to discuss even, but you have to say we're all people, we're grown-ups, we understand life. Nobody can understand this stuff because this could have taken place, but we have the hostages for the most part, and so I don't think it's going to be overly big. The situation with the bodies, this 28, some are going to be a little bit hard to find, but we're going to do the best we can. Yeah, please.
If they don't find them within the time frame.
Please.
Thank you, sir. Regarding Jared Kushner's role in the negotiations, can you explain a little bit about why he came on at the last minute? And then in regards to the WIC program that the Vice President mentioned, do you know when the funding that you promised through the tariff revenue will actually go through to communities? Because there's reports that WIC providers are actually starting to close down today.
Well, okay, let me just answer the Jared. So Jared's a very smart guy. He did the Abraham Accords. As some people say, the Abraham, which I love the way that sounds. But he did the Abraham Accords. It was a great thing for big countries joined. If I were president, if the election would have been a correct election, which it wasn't, you'd have every country in there. Maybe even Iran would have been in there, frankly. But you'd have every country. And now, by the way, that's going to be filled up rather quickly. People want to join the Abraham Accords. And I put Jared there because he's a very smart person. And he knows the region, knows the people, knows a lot of the players. And the combination of him and Steve Witkoff and Marco and Cooper, who, as I hear, has been fantastic, and others that were involved. JD was very much involved. I mean, we had a very smart group of people working. We had a lot of different players, different countries, and very diverse countries, very different from each other. They had certain things in common, but they had a lot of things, mostly things that were not at all common to their countries. So we had a very smart group of people. These are high IQ people. Okay, I talk about how many low IQ people we have in our government. We got some real low ones, but some shockingly low. But these are very high IQ people, and that's what we want. I like high IQ people.
Mr. President, thank you. Can I ask you about the China? You're meeting with President Xi. The Chinese have now set to put in new export controls on rare earth minerals, and they've stopped buying soybeans from the U.S. What do you hope to get out of that meeting now with President Xi?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I just heard this a little while ago before we came in, so I haven't been briefed on it. The export. Look, we have the ultimate export. We have import, and we have export. We import from China massive amounts. And, maybe we'll have to stop doing that. But I don't know exactly what it is. Neither do you. Neither does anybody. It's a little bit soon. I just heard about it. So Scott and Howard will figure that out, and I'm sure we'll be able to handle it.
Can I ask you about the soybeans? What is the plan to help farmers? Is it direct checks? Is it tax? Have you sorted that out yet?
Well, what happens with soybeans is we're going to see more and more, I think, opening up. And part of the reason that we'll be he's got things that he wants to discuss with me, and I have things that I want to discuss with him. And one of the things is soybeans. I had a great deal with China where they would buy $50 billion worth of our farm product and manufacturing and other things, but farm product. And it was going along well. Then when the election turned out to be a rigged election and we had the wrong guy get in there, he didn't do anything about it. I used to call up President Xi every 2 weeks, or I'd call up people in China, say, you got to keep going. You're not buying the amount that you agreed to. And this went on for, ever since we signed the agreement. It was a great agreement. So they used to do 15 billion, and I got it up to 50 billion, 50. And it was great. Then when Biden got in, they just never adhered to the agreement, and nobody in Biden's group, as you can imagine, did anything about it. So it just sat there for 4 years, and they didn't adhere to the agreement. And we, it's hard to go back after 4 years of nobody calling them. But I used to call them every 2 weeks. I'd say, you're a little low, or I appreciate it. Oftentimes I'd say, thank you very much. You are totally adhering to the agreement. But we had an agreement. They would buy $50 billion worth of our product, mostly farm product. And remember I said to the farmers, buy larger tractors and more land. And that's exactly what happened. They did well. But we do suffer. I'd like you to discuss that maybe for a second, Brooke. Sure. Very quickly, by the way.
Yes.
Very quickly.
But would you just talk about how Biden let us down? Biden, every single thing, every problem the farmer has is because Biden didn't do anything for 4 years. Go ahead.
No, I think that's right. This president has been unequivocal in his support of the farmers. First of all, in term one, we worked on it so hard and opened up markets, but especially this term. But here's what everyone has to understand. The farm economy is in a very uncertain time. But that isn't because of the current trade negotiations, although certainly the China part is part of that. But we inherited a slew of issues. First of all, as the president said, when we left Trump 1, we had an agriculture trade surplus. When we came back for Trump 2, it was a $50 billion ag deficit. That isn't everything, that's just agriculture. The second part is the cost of inputs for our farmers increased on average between 30 and 38%. But that includes fertilizer, it includes fuel, it includes interest rates, it includes labor. All of this came about under Joe Biden, a 47% increase in the cost of labor that now Secretary Chavez Rimmer and Noam and I are working on. Fuel is coming down, thank you. Interest rates, thankfully, are coming down to 73% increase in interest rates for our farmers, they couldn't get loans to make sure that they could move forward. So that's all really, really important. And I think we have to realize what the president's commitment is this, that we are moving into an era of rural prosperity, of a golden age for our farmers in rural America. The trade renegotiations and the trade realignment that Jameson and Scott and Howard have led with the president's leadership is unlike anything that's happened in the history of our country. And those that will benefit the most are the original Americans, our farmers and our ranchers. The president has committed, if we need a bridge, he's talked about that to get us from the Biden years to the new Trump era. That's what we're working on every day. We've got to get the government reopened so that we can move forward on that. And once we do, we'll be able to move out a significant program to help our farmers. Long term, we have to change this hamster wheel of government. We've got to ensure that the farmers have the market to sell, and it's a national security issue and onshoring a lot of the food as well. So, sir, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think that's enough.
We always got you covered here on Live Now from Fox. Let's take a 2-minute break. Be back with more.
2-minute break. Okay, I saw somebody put in the chat about the Nobel Peace Prize. Donald Trump is up for the Nobel Peace Prize. Is there any news on that? For his work with is there any news on that? Because of what's going on in Gaza and all that stuff? I don't know. I don't know. Let me try to look that up real fast. So I didn't see anything new on that. Okay, Starla says it's getting announced in 13 minutes that he is a huge. Whoa! They're saying that he's worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize because to end that war, do I think it's going to be ended for a long time? Honestly, no. No, I don't. They've been fighting for how long? But if that country can get some peace, that would be awesome. Trump, best president ever, advanced 28 to keep America strong. I don't know. I do think that he's doing what he was put in office to do. You can't be at war with your own country. Nobody of substance dominated him. Starla, I mean, he may just get it. He may just get it. I'm not going to rule him out until I actually hear about it. Okay? So I don't know. I guess we'll soon find out. Oh, let me see what y'all saying while these commercials are going on. Where's my volume? Turn this down. He's so delusional. She can actually construct a sentence without byline facing. Okay, y'all just kind of wilding out in there in the chat.
Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I'm Eddie Mack. Officials make remarks following a judge's decision to block the deployment of National Guard troops in Chicago.
This is crazy right here.
I think today
this is sad to me.
We witness why the system of justice exists, the importance of this building. Might I add, this building that doesn't need the protection of the National Guard right now.
I disagree.
Our Constitution, our rule of law, the law that's laid out by Congress has to be respected by everybody to the extent that we continue to be the United States of America that our founding fathers thought we would be through time. And I think Judge Perry did a very careful job of weighing the evidence, weighing the credibility of the evidence and those declarations that served as the testimony to be considered as to whether or not the President of the United States could and should federalize and deploy the National Guard into our great city and our great state. And I think after doing so, she made the correct decision to enter a temporary restraining order. I'd like to thank the heroes behind me who have stood up not just for the citizens of the city of Chicago, the citizens of the city of Broadview, citizens of the state of Illinois, but I might add that this is an important decision not just for the state of Illinois.
The city is in so much
but
trouble.
for the entire country.
This is insane.
The question of state sovereignty was addressed in this decision. The question of whether or not the President of the United States should have unfettered authority to militarize our cities was answered today. And I want to thank every member of the legal team, those you see behind me who argued, who drafted carefully, and all those who supported them. Again, they are true American heroes. With that, I'll yield to any questions. There's a temporary restraining order that they should not be active within the state of Illinois. They're welcome to stay at our hotels if they pay the hotel rate. They're welcome to eat at our restaurants like any other American citizen. I should say that, you know, and this is something to be said to those who may frown upon those who have volunteered for the National Guard. I don't look negatively at any one of the individuals who have lent themselves to service in our country. So I said in jest, they're welcome to stay and shop and eat and so forth. But I don't frown upon any of them, one of those individuals. And I think our decision is one on their behalf as well, that they should not be turned against the very citizens that they volunteered to protect.
Sir,
that there is a First Amendment, that you have a right to peacefully protest. One of the things that the judge spoke to is the provocation of protesters, that the aggression was that we've witnessed was not coming necessarily from protesters. Certainly there are individual cases of, as the judge recognized, of people stepping out of line, but there were pepper balls, tear gas being sprayed by, being fired by members of ICE or Border Patrol, and that provocation should not be used as a means to justify elevating to the deployment of the National Guard.
This mission has been described as 60 days, and the TRO lasts for 14 days. So logistically and legally speaking, what does the next 2 months then look like if they appeal?
We'll meet things as they come.
now, there are still, though, Texas National Guard members in the state. If this order is, we don't want them here, how are we going to leave?
Well, I'm not physically going to be escorting people. The judge has ordered that the National Guard of the United States, whether they're from Texas or any other one of the 50 states, should not be deployed within the state of Illinois. So it is up to the defendants to make certain that they abide by the judge's order. It's not us.
The order was read to today. My understanding is that the broader military, perhaps Preparation for Insurrection Act. A, are you still worried about that being used by Trump? How do you feel about protecting?
Listen, I'm worried about a lot with regards to his administration, and I've been responding to a lot. We have some 40 plus lawsuits, some of which we started preparing for and we could anticipate, and some actions that we could not anticipate. I can't anticipate. It's only been 8 or 9 months of this administration. While it seems like 10 years, it feels like we have 10 years worth of actions. I find no joy in challenging my own government, and so I think all of you would agree with me. The acts of this president and this government are unpredictable, so I can't predict what's going to happen in the future. I can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. I can't predict what's going to happen 2 days from now. I will tell you, I have a capable staff of attorneys who have been responding to various actions, and they've been working through the night. Again, they are American heroes. I'm proud of them. And unfortunately, they're ready for what may come next, and we will respond.
Immediately, or is it tomorrow when the judge enters it?
Today?
Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So immediately.
Can you explain what it actually means? Clarify what partial TRO means, partial judgment means in this case.
But what part wasn't granted, I guess, is what I still don't understand.
Let's see.
We moved on 3 claims. You created 1 claim as of right now, which section 2406.
Okay. So in our complaint, we had multiple claims. You heard a lot about section 12406. That is the claim upon which the TRO was granted. So that's the granted in part.
So you said you want the defendants to comply with TRO, but if you wake up tomorrow and National Guardsmen are still out on you, and the administration says, no, we're just not going to pay attention to this. There are levers of power that you, the governor, could do together, or you could provide the legal backup for the governor to employ the ISP to perhaps to remove these guardsmen or back up the general.
Listen. We have been in litigation on a great number of issues. For example, there have been cases with regards to freezing of federal funds. In some of those cases, after we have had orders granted, we have had to go back into court to seek relief, and we've received such relief. And so we are not in the business of armed removal of National Guard people. So I just commented on it. Thank you.
Ooh, he got touchy there.
No, I'm not disappointed. I'm not disappointed at all. I think the judge did a very careful job of weighing all the evidence, questioning both us on behalf of the people of the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, and questioning the federal government, weighing the evidence. And I want to reemphasize weighing the credibility. This was about credibility. You heard about the attempt, some of the declarations of acts, alleged acts against ICE officers, where they sought out a grand jury indictment that was denied. There's no saying about indicting a ham sandwich. The defendants in this case couldn't put together a ham sandwich. Thank you.
And we'll continue to follow the top headlines here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this.
Okay, you guys. Where the heck is my mute button? I don't want to touch anything because y'all know I have trouble sharing my screen sometimes. But I find that regardless, can y'all hear me over this music? Hold on. Let me try to turn this down. Regardless if you're Republican or Democrat, it's about safety in the cities. Now, I'm from that area. Well, not that area, but I'm from Wisconsin, right? I live in California now. But the crime in that city is bad. So I can't believe that I'm really surprised at the judge's ruling in that case. DC was cleaned up. And I would think if I lived there, I want the same for my city if I love my city. Oh, let me see y'all comments while we're on break. Happy says the state has control over the National Guard. I'm shocked at the ruling. I am. And again, you guys can rock out in the chat as long as you're respectful. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever you are. I'm going for this country. Now, I'm still going to say that Donald Trump is up for the Nobel Peace Prize for the deal in Hamas, right? And I don't have any more news on that as of yet. Hello from China. Hello back. The president has control of the country. Right side, and thankfully it's controlling Congress. We control the House and the Senate right now. Let me see. It's kind of hard for me to follow some of y'all comments because you're kind of rocking out in the chat. Prayers for our country. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene surprised me. I'm not going to hold you with wanting to keep Obamacare going, the Affordable Care Act. I was pretty shocked when people say that she's turning on Donald Trump. Now, Marjorie says she still supports Donald Trump, but she's been pretty outspoken about what this has done to her family and her grown children as far as the shutdown. Okay, here we go.
Last fall, New York Attorney General Letitia James
Here
was
we go.
indicted Thursday on mortgage fraud charges. We know that she was charged with bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution in connection with a home purchase in 2020. It happened in Virginia. Standing by to discuss this is former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Nima, as always, it's good to see you. Catch us up on this. The Trump administration, they had pushed out another prosecutor who had resisted filing charges against James.
Prosecute Trump, but
What's happened between then and now?
Eric Siebert, the interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, was essentially pushed out, like you said, Austin, resigned because he refused to file not just this case against Letitia James, but of course the indictment against James Comey. And the Trump administration appointed Lindsay Halligan, one of the president's former lawyers, an insurance lawyer with no prosecution experience whatsoever. So she went into that grand jury a couple weeks ago, and in her first prosecution got an indictment against Comey. And today, that second shoe dropped. I think we were all expecting this bank fraud prosecution of Letitia James, and it's serious. You know, when you talk about bank fraud, you're looking at a potential 30-year sentence in federal prison. I'm not saying she's going to get anywhere near that.
I doubt it.
This is no joke when the attorney general of one of the biggest states in the country is charged with a federal felony.
A live look at the New York City skyline, 917 in the Big Apple. The Associated Press says that the indictment pertains to James's purchase of a house in Norfolk, Virginia, again in 2020. During that sale, she signed a standard document called a second home rider, in which she agreed to various rules, including a requirement that she would keep the property primarily for her personal use and enjoyment for at least 1 year, unless the lender agreed otherwise in writing. The AP says, rather than using the home as a second residence, the indictment alleges that James rented it out to a family of 3. According to the indictment, the misrepresentation allowed James to obtain favorable loan terms not available for investment properties typically. The AP saying such. We've been reporting on this for a good amount of the evening here, Nima. Given James's position as the AG in New York, how unusual is it for someone in her role to face an indictment? What kind of precedent does this set also?
Austin, is highly unusual, and it seems like I come on live now seemingly every day and say we're dealing with something unprecedented, but it really is. And like you said, anyone who's applied for a mortgage or has a mortgage knows that if it's your primary home, you're going to have more favorable terms, typically a lower interest rate. And if it's a rental, you're going to have to pay more. So this statement is important. People might think it's a victimless crime, but it's not necessarily that. So if you're looking at bank fraud, you're looking at 5 elements here. You're looking at a scheme to defraud. You're looking at a knowingly false statement to a bank. So you got those 3. But the statement has to be intended to defraud, and it has to be material. It has to be important. I could see the defense trying to attack this case on the intent and the materiality, but otherwise, it seems like there's plenty of evidence that this statement was false. If she never lived there, she rented it out. It seems like it was a rental. This is going to be tough legally for the Attorney General. Politically, she might be okay, might not have any problems, but she's going to have to face these charges in federal court in Virginia. It's going to be a serious issue for the Attorney General.
Yeah, what comes next in the legal process? Do we have any clarity on that? Is she going to have to make a court appearance shortly?
She will, just like Comey had to appear in court and plead not guilty at an arraignment. Expect the Attorney General to have to do the same. It'll probably be sometime next week. I don't think she's going to be arrested. She'll be allowed to surrender like Comey was. Obviously different cases, but there are some parallels. Expect to see a selective or vindictive prosecution argument. Those arguments rarely are successful. The president himself raised them in his criminal cases. So did Hunter Biden. They were rejected. But the argument really is as follows. 1, that James is being prosecuted against her First Amendment rights because she has spoken out against the president. So it's a free speech violation. Or that it's a vindictive prosecution. She's being prosecuted only because she sued the president civilly. So expect those arguments in the coming weeks and months by Letitia James's team. I also expect them to challenge Halligan's appointment itself. And, even if there was a violation, that violation can be cured by having another assistant U.S. attorney step in. I'm sure there's probably one career prosecutor in that office that's willing to take on the case if there is a violation. So that type of argument, even though it's made, it's probably not going to derail the case entirely. It may just be a delay tactic.
Could this impact any cases that her office is handling?
Potentially, yes. We know that some very high-profile and experienced prosecutors have left. What I would say is this. Since it's the second shoe, I wouldn't be surprised, Austin, if we see 2 more indictments. And that's California Senator Adam Schiff for similar mortgage fraud allegations, or at least we'll see a complaint or an indictment. Now, President Biden did pardon Schiff on his way out, but that related to the January 6th committee and the impeachment proceedings. I'm not sure that pardon would cover any bank fraud or mortgage fraud. And of John Bolton, and we know that obviously his home was raided and classified documents investigation, but the 4 people that the president identified that the Department of Justice should go after, Comey and James have now been charged. And I think those other 2, in a matter of days or weeks, I would expect charges as well. The president has been pretty clear about what he wants, and at least this U.S. attorney in Eastern Virginia is willing to go along with the president's requests.
What's important to follow next? What are you looking to next week? You say she could make a court appearance within the next week or so. Other than that, what are you watching for?
I think that court appearance, she's going to plead not guilty, and then expect those motions to be teed up by the defense. The vindictive selective prosecution, the motion challenging the appointment, anything else they can do to go after this indictment. On the merits, I think really the only basis to do so would be to say that this was an innocent mistake. It wasn't material to the loan itself. It's not like she was misstating her income or her assets. I think the materiality is going to be a little bit harder because it does affect that interest rate and the amount that she might have had to put down and otherwise collateralize the loan. So we'll see the indictment being attacked, but I don't think those motions will be successful. We may have 2 very high-profile jury trials in Northern Virginia, and at least as far as Comey and James are concerned, tends to be predominantly Democrat there, so that jury pool may be favorable for both defendants in what are likely 2 very politicized prosecutions.
Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani joining us tonight. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Austin. Talk soon.
Talk soon. All right, the time approaching 9:30 in the nation's capital. Let's hit a commercial break. Back at them.
Woo! Do you guys feel like it's karma? They're being vindictive against her? for going after Trump. I don't know. Who knows? Okay, I'll talk about what Trump looks like. I don't care what Donald Trump looks like. I care about what he's doing for the country or what he's not doing for the country. Okay? I don't care. I do think that a lot of times the political left will use comments and insults when they can't make a valid point. I'm just going to say that. Don't want to offend you guys from the left, okay? But what does his looks have to do with anything? She broke the law, El Payer said. Why shouldn't she be held accountable? Why shouldn't she be held accountable? We all have to be held accountable for the things that we do and say. Okay? So, ICE also deporting Americans. That's false news. What American has been deported. That fear-mongering tactic that they like to do doesn't really work here. It just doesn't. People are getting deported that are not documented here, which is important because you have nobody wants to talk about the kids that have come, under the guise of the parents to be trafficked in this country, not to be seen again. Unfortunately, those things do happen. It's okay to enter the country, but just do it legally because I can't go into these other countries. I'll see somebody from China here. I can't just enter China how I want to. Okay, you guys will kick me out. Try to stay focused. Need to deprogram from that left versus right paradigm in order to see through the smoke and mirrors. That's right. It's not about the left or the right. I am interested. I would love to see this government reopen. Again, it's interesting. I'm Marjorie Taylor Greene. I would say jump ship in this situation, but I'll wait to get to her. Depending on how long this is. I don't know how long this is. This is my first time seeing it with you guys. In politics, you have to dot your I's and cross your T's, everything above board. Uh-oh.
Asher Red is standing by in Chicago right now. And Asher, you were in the courtroom.
It is about the left and the right. It is about the left and right side. But I'm just saying in this chat, I don't care where you are.
Perry, a Biden appointee, intensely questioned DOJ attorneys for well over an hour. And one of the attorneys representing the Trump administration answered most of the judge's questions with a series of ums followed with, "I'm not sure." Now, the state of Illinois sued the federal government Monday to stop the National Guard deployment, calling it unlawful and unconstitutional. At one point, Judge Perry asked DOJ attorney Eric Hamilton if he even knew the definitions to some of the terms in the Trump administration's response to the lawsuit, terms like rebellion and executing law, but he couldn't answer the questions directly. The judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking President Trump's National Guard deployment in the state, ruling that the move violated the 4th and 10th Amendments. Meanwhile, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says the National Guard deployment infringes on the state's sovereignty and right to govern itself.
Donald Trump wakes up on one side or the other of his bed, the end, the head, I don't know where, but each time he's got some new idea about how to attack our cities, and we're going to do everything we can to protect the people of Illinois.
The Trump administration sent 200 Texas National Guard troops to protect federal agents and property from violent protests. Some of those troops began guarding an ICE processing facility in nearby Broadview, Illinois, overnight. That facility has been the site of violent protests, forcing the feds to put up barriers around the building. Now, the DOJ also told the judge that federal agents recently found a makeshift bomb near that facility. Trump administration officials say federal agents in Chicago need National Guard protection.
I've seen this movie before. Unless this rhetoric stops, there will be more harm, especially to the men and women at ICE. Governor Pritzker should be calling President Trump up and thanking him for taking over 1,000.
I haven't heard from Tom Homan in a while.
Off the streets of his state.
And Judge Perry is acknowledging that a DOJ appeal is likely, and it's not clear what will happen with the 200 Texas National Guard troops who are already in the Chicago area. Back to you. Fox's Asher Red reporting for us live from Chicago tonight. Thanks, Asher. A live look at the Chicago skyline. We do have standing by retired Marine Intelligence Officer and National Security Analyst Hal Kemper. He's here with me. He's discussed the deployment of troops to Los Angeles, D.C. We've talked about the idea of troops being sent to several more cities, Hal. Of course, the Windy City is the topic of the day. Hal, President Trump has said that he would be willing to invoke the Insurrection Act if courts block his efforts. It remains unclear to us at this point if that will happen. What do we need to know about the Insurrection Act?
Well, Austin, if the Insurrection Act is actually invoked, and I guarantee it'll be challenged in court, it basically is a way to circumvent the restrictions under posse comitatus. At that point, you're basically saying the situation is so bad that state and local authorities can't actually, provide law and order on the streets, and you're sending in federal military troops in order to do that. And those federal military troops can do a lot of things that are actually prohibited under posse comitatus. They can go out there, they can stop, detain, they could technically arrest people, they could do a lot of different things under the Insurrection Act. Now, the Insurrection Act's been invoked before, famously invoked in 1992 in Los Angeles, if you remember the Rodney King riots. And it was used in Arkansas to enforce school integration back in 1957. That was under President Eisenhower. Those were not National Guard troops, by the way. Those were actually troops from the 101st Airborne Division. That is federal military at all times. It never goes into state status. That is an active duty unit. And then if you want to go way the heck back to 1794 and the Whiskey Rebellion, I know you remember that. I think you covered that, Austin. That was another time that the Insurrection Act was invoked as well. So it could be done. The issue, though, it seems to be hitting here is that these judges, first in Oregon and now in Illinois, are blocking the National Guard troops from being federalized to go do this stuff. And right now, this order that Judge Perry put out is in effect. I think it's going to be taken up to appeal. Sounds like the federal judges or the federal attorneys, U.S. DOJ attorneys in this, may have made some mistakes in court that kind of hurt their argument. But what I'm hearing on the West Coast, Ninth Circuit has looked at the decision in Oregon, and it sounds like they're leaning very much towards overturning that. The idea that the president cannot federalize the National Guard, that's just something that states shouldn't be able to block.
So, is this a done deal in Chicago? Can we firmly say that we will not see the deployment of National Guard troops, or is it still an open case in some regards?
I think it's just temporarily stopped.
Yeah.
I think it's still very much an open case. And depending on whenever there's an appellate decision on this, or if they don't go further with extending this current blocking action that took place under Judge Perry, that basically you probably will see troops going there. Now, what's very interesting is that the president could potentially federalize those National Guard troops in Illinois and send them somewhere else. And then he could do what was done in 1957, send regular federal military troops up to these federal facilities in Chicago and do everything. Once they're Title 10, they're Title 10. Doesn't matter if they're sourced from the National Guard or somewhere else. And I don't know that the judge would have a lot of standing if they sent regular federal military Title 10 forces, from some base somewhere else in the country.
Guard members from Texas and Illinois arrived this week at a U.S. Army Reserve Center in Elwood, which is southwest of Chicago. All 500 of them are under the U.S. Northern Command, and they've been activated for 60 days, as you know, Hal. What have those troops actually been doing in the short time that they've been there?
Training. What they've been doing is working all the logistics issues, what they're going to need for the mission, everything else, getting everything ready to go for deploying into the city. And then the other part is training. There's a lot of specialized training they have to do, some of it dealing with potential civil unrest, special tactics, techniques, procedures. Certainly a lot of use of what we call less than lethal or non-lethal techniques and capabilities that would allow them to stop the protester short of using their weapons, if you will. Using less than lethal weapons, I guess you could say, or whatever it is. But there's a lot of tactical stuff they have to do, working with shields and helmets and a lot of other things. So they've been using that training. And by the way, they need every minute they can get doing that training. It's not something they do all the time. It's not something they don't do, but they don't do it all the time. And the more they train, the better they'll be. And the better they'll be, the less likely you're going to see a mistake or something that could result in an unwarranted injury or something worse.
It's a lot. I just gotta pray for the city of Chicago. When I did plan on going to Chicago this year, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen, you guys. It doesn't. I see your comments in the chats. All the comments. If you know any Koreans, okay, you guys are kind of. Mike said Palestinians voted for Hamas and cheered in the streets on 9/11. Don't forget that. The royal lives. I don't know, you guys. What do you think about that? Ben says, I used to be a staunch Democrat until I seen how they turned out. I wouldn't vote Democrat again if I had to. All that DIBS. Irby says, I'm staying from Chicago. Yeah, I was supposed to go, Irby. I plan on meeting somebody that we both know. But nah, I'm going to see my family in Wisconsin, and I'm going to stay in Wisconsin, which has its own set of problems. The oppressed becomes the oppressor. What is a communist? You probably don't even know. You just like the label. Are you talking to me, Salute? Yeah, I don't think I mentioned communism. Most used to be a Democrat, but they went off the deep end. Well, you have to start questioning what's a biological woman. I don't know how that's even an argument. Women playing in men's sports. Why is that an argument? Wait, are they back? They're not back. So those are my problems with the left agenda that they're trying to push. The 63, is it 63 now? First it was 57, now it's 63 genders. What 63 genders are we talking about, and what shall we name them? It's funny when we're having these studies on cancer research and other things, nobody's talking about the other genders. We talk about a man and we talk about a woman. And occasionally there is a genetic hiccup. We have both, sex organs. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, men should not compete with women at the Olympics. Period. Should be a no-brainer.
Point of Gaza.
I shouldn't be canceled for saying that.
You at home might have noticed this, like we have, that there is this bright light shining in the middle of the picture, and we have not been able to distinguish what exactly that is.
What is this?
It does appear that it's something separate from any of the blasts that we've seen in recent days. So unclear if there could be some sort of controlled burn or some other large light that might be out in the distance there. We acknowledge it and we do see it ourselves. We simply don't know what it is.
Oh, okay, so I'm not the only one.
The Gaza war, of course, has been
like,
dominating
what is
the headlines
this?
the past couple of days. And today we are now learning that Israel is sending about 200 troops. The United States is sending about 200 troops to Israel to help support and monitor the ceasefire deal in Gaza as part of a team that includes partner nations, non-governmental organizations, and private sector players. Hal Kemper is still
Thank you for the makeup brush, bigger than life. Thank you.
200 troops to Israel.
Thank you, guys.
Do we have any specifics about
please
what
hit
they're
the
going to
like.
be doing?
Hit the like button.
Yeah, they're going to be setting up what's called a Civil Military Coordination Center. And that's something I've actually trained on behalf of our government. I've trained other countries on how to do things like that, setting up civil military operations centers, civil military coordination centers. It is something you do when you're doing a civil military operation. In other words, you have civilian agencies. In some cases, you have non-governmental organizations like the Red Cross and other things that will be in there. And then you have military. And in this case, you might have multiple militaries. You could have militaries from across the Middle East. You could have Pakistan, Indonesia. Sounds like the French may send some forces in there. So that's something that we do very well. That's something we probably do better than anybody else in the world. We've done it many times in many theaters that we do the civil military coordination piece. And we have, I think, some of the best skills, doctrine, in terms of making this happen. So those 200 troops, and even though broadly speaking, they're helping to monitor the peacekeeping and doing all these other things, what they're really doing is they're working a center that's going to help get aid into the Palestinians that need all that aid. It's going to help, moving forces that got to go in there to do peacekeeping operations. I imagine at some point it'll probably even help with setting up this new transitional government that they're going to have set up after Hamas moves aside. Hopefully Hamas moves aside. Anyway, they're going to be busy. I don't know if it's going to be actually physically located in Gaza or adjacent to Gaza. This is all brand new. It just came out. Frankly, it surprised a lot of people that we're actually putting boots on the ground. It's just not entirely clear which ground those boots will be on, but they will be there working the Gaza issue.
A live look at the White House. The time is 8:38 in the nation's capital. The Gaza war has been dominating the headlines, as I said, but the Russia-Ukraine war has not gone anywhere. Politico has the following reporting. They say Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is saying that he'll nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize and sends Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine.
Water went down the wrong way.
Ceasefire with Russia. When asked about the potential of getting Tomahawks from the U.S., Zelensky was recently quoted as saying, quote, "During our most recent meeting, I didn't even know. What I did hear was that work will continue at the technical level and that this possibility will be considered," unquote. So how? Why are Tomahawks so important to Ukraine? Are Tomahawks necessary for defensive purposes?
Exactly, I hear you.
What do they want to use these things for?
Well, in all candor, as you know, I've always been a fan of Tomahawk missiles ever since they told me that was on the list of things that I can employ if I need to. They're rather expensive, but they have tremendous range. They can cover certainly all of European Russia. They can shoot all the way into more of what I would call the far east side of Russia on the other side of the Urals. Now, the Ukrainians are actually building something similar to that. It's called the Flamingo missile. It's not quite certainly not as sophisticated as a Tomahawk. But what I'm hearing is that President Trump says he's kind of made a decision on the Tomahawk missiles. And I have seen where we may have about 200 missiles that we could send. Why would they want them? Because they can do some deep strike stuff, and they come in with a really heavy warhead. If you remember the strikes that took place in Iran, yes, the B-2 bombers got a lot of attention, but that was one target. But the other two targets were actually hit with submarine-launched Tomahawk missiles, and they were extremely capable. We've had these things for well over 3 decades, going into almost 4 decades. Very, very accurate. Of course, that 1,000-kilogram warhead that can cause massive devastation, and it's a cruise missile, flies low, very difficult to intercept. And if Ukraine had those missiles, that could really change a lot of things. Those are missiles that could be aimed at oil refineries, gas refining capabilities, or processing plants. They can be aimed at those places that create rocket fuel, for example, for those ballistic missiles. They can be aimed at places where they build drones. There's just a lot of different things. And yes, potentially, they could use it to attack Moscow. That's been brought up over and over again. I don't think they need to use the Tomahawks to attack Moscow. And of course, Putin has been saber-rattling like crazy, mentioning nuclear war, mentioning all sorts of stuff. I should say Putin's, the henchmen surrounding him have been saying all these things. They're very nervous about this. Right now, Ukraine has been very successful going after the oil refineries. There are long gas lines in Moscow, St. Petersburg. Gas is selling over $9 a gallon if you could find it, if you finally get there. And this is causing great internal political stress in these metropolitan areas of Russia.
We've been talking endlessly, and we talked for over an hour, you and I, yesterday, about the Gaza peace deal. This was a Trump-branded peace deal. Who could be that figure, and who is on the short list of figures or states that could put together a similar deal that might lead us on a path to peace in the Russia-Ukraine fight?
Well, I think it's going to go back to the same place. President Trump has just started saying, once literally the ink had not dried on these documents, and already the White House was talking about trying to reinvigorate the ceasefire or peace process in the Ukraine-Russia war. And so I think he's going to make another attempt at it. And of course, President Zelensky I got to tell you, he has become after that thing that happened in February in the White House, in the Oval Office, he has become very adept at his choice of language. And so he was saying, look, I will nominate President Trump to get a Nobel Peace Prize if he'll send us Tomahawk missiles. And he realizes the Tomahawk missiles could be, dare I use an overworked term, game changer in terms of what's happening there, and hitting those places that could really have an impact, not just on their supply chain and their infrastructure, but really have a psychological impact on the Russian people, and do those things that would truly weaken the Putin regime to the point that he might say, hey, look, this is getting too dangerous. I can't keep doing this war. I need to stop it because I'm going to have another 1991 moment here if I don't do something. So, yes, he's pushing for that hard. And at the same time, I should also mention those other missiles that they produce called the Flamingo missiles, very similar to the Tomahawk in many capabilities. Those things are ramping up production. I think they're going to be producing a little less than, last month they were producing about 1 missile a day. I think they're producing a little less than 10 missiles a day now. They're expected to go to full production in February. I've never heard how many missiles per day that is, but it's a lot more than what they're producing now. And that's one where you could see a tremendous amount of destruction across Russia, deep inside Russia, hitting those places where everybody thinks they're safe, and then all of a sudden everything becomes chaos and blows up. And that's the sort of thing that causes great angst in the Russian psyche.
Let's talk about, and we've been ping-ponging back and forth from region to region here. I got to head back to the Middle East because Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt recently sent this out. She's responding to the reports of 200 U.S. troops being sent to Israel to help support and monitor the deal in Gaza. She says this is not true and taken out of context. She says, to be clear, up to 200 U.S. personnel who are already stationed at CENTCOM will be tasked with monitoring the peace agreement in Israel, and they will work with other international forces on the ground. With her clarification in mind, does that change anything about how you think about the situation?
Actually, I just see it as a clarification. That's kind of what we just said, actually. There was a lot of running with this, saying, "Oh, we're going to put 200 troops," and I heard this from a number of outlets saying, "We're going to put 200 troops on the ground, or we're going to put 200 troops in there monitoring the peacekeeping process and stuff." And it's not exactly that. If they're running a CMCC, which could be on Israeli territory, it could be using CENTCOM troops that are already in U.S. Central Command troops that are already in the Middle East. Could be simply moving them around and moving up to that. And a lot of this could be done where they don't actually have to be physically located right there next to the border of Gaza. Some of it could be more remote, that they provide support at other locations, perhaps at airfields and other things like that, where they provide some, greater legs, if you will, in terms of what comes in. So there's a lot of ways this can be set up. So I think she was just trying to clarify that, no, we're not putting combat troops on the ground in Gaza doing peacekeeping missions. And I did hear some language earlier in the day that when this first popped up, and by the way, it's only been out for a few hours, but when this first popped up, there was a kind of I thought some people were kind of jumping to conclusions and making it sound like 200 troops will be out there, doing this lost patrol thing somewhere in Gaza, and that's just not the case. So I think her clarification is actually, it's appropriate for what she's trying to say. Doesn't really say what exactly they're doing, but she's just trying to clarify they're not going to be actually physically with weapons patrolling the Gaza Strip, which I think some people are worried about.
Yeah. Hal Kemper is a retared Marine intelligence officer, national security analyst, and the host of the Strat podcast. You can listen to Strat anywhere podcasts are available. Good to see you.
Let's see how fast oh shoot, what did I do? Hang on, you guys. There's a poll that they have. How long will Trump's Israel-Palestine treaty last? That's what it is. Just for educational phrase purposes only. I think this is it right here. What is it showing? Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Is it here? I don't know if that's what I'm looking for. We gotta talk about Marjorie. Marjorie, now they're saying that she's blaming the Republicans for the shutdown. I wouldn't go that far. Where is it? That's not it. Where is it at? Whatever. I just have to use this one.
One of the most controversial members of Congress, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, usually draws the ire of Democrats, but now she's speaking out against some in her own party and coming out in favor of what Democrats demand to reopen the government, an extension of enhanced health care subsidies.
Congressman Greene, thank you for joining us here in the Situation Room. We appreciate it.
Can y'all hear it?
Let's start there. Let's start with the shutdown. So you voted for the short-term funding bill, but now you're talking about this healthcare issue. Help us better understand why now.
Well, actually, this is something I talked about when I first ran for Congress in 2020, because I grew up in a construction company family. Bought that company after college and retired my parents. And after the ACA was passed,
The Affordable Care Act.
yes, the Affordable Care Act, our family's health insurance premium went from $800 a month to $2,400 a month. So I've known about this as a major problem for a long time. It's not just ACA recipients whose premiums are going to skyrocket very soon. It has been a disaster for many Americans across the board. And cost of living is so high now. Many of my constituents, many of my friends, and even my own children are finding health insurance to be extremely unaffordable and something that they are having to go without. So I think this is an incredibly important issue. I think it is a crisis. I don't think it's something to wear political party team jerseys on. I think it's something that we have to address and fix.
That's very personal for you.
Very personal. It's affected my own life. And the Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010. So
I think what she's about to say is really interesting. I'll let you guys hear it.
we're 15 years down the road and the industry has changed drastically. Many companies dropped out of the market. We've seen doctors stop having their own practices and become hospital employees. We now have to import doctors because we don't have enough. Healthcare has drastically changed, and I'm one of those that gets real tired of political drama when it's not actually solving a problem. And this is such a crisis that
it's interesting that she says she's tired of political drama. And I've liked Marjorie, but she does get into it quite often with Jasmine Crockett, and I just don't really understand this flip here.
I'm willing to say, okay, everyone, we have to do something about this. It shouldn't be something that we dangle the American people or military pay or all of these things. We shouldn't be dangling them back and forth. We have to fix it.
What are you hearing from your constituents right now? And do you have any regrets about voting for that short-term continuing resolution, that spending bill?
Thank you for that question. Number one, I am a Republican, and I support the president. I was very vocal about I didn't want to vote for a
It doesn't
CR.
sound like it right now.
I want to pass our appropriations. That's our constitutional duty, and I want to bring that taxpayer dollars back to my district. I work hard on that, so that was important to me. But I support the president, and I voted for the CR. Number two, what am I hearing from my constituents? It's great. We track all the calls that come into my office. About 60% of the calls coming in right now are calls of support and saying, yes, health insurance is a crisis. They're telling us stories about how they're already paying $2,000 a month with $10,000 deductibles. I'm getting phone calls from people that are saying if the ACA tax credits expire, they aren't going to be able to have health insurance. They're going to have to drop it. But I'm hearing from people on both sides, people already on the ACA and people that are already getting crushed by high health insurance premiums.
I want to ask you about this new Washington Post poll. It shows that 47% of Americans believe that President Trump and the Republicans are mainly responsible for the shutdown. You see it here on the screen, compared to just 30% of Americans who blame Democrats. Of course, Republicans are the ones with the power. Do you agree with Americans in that poll that see the shutdown as your party's fault?
You know what? I don't think the shutdown is popular for either side. And so I see the shutdown completely different from maybe my party leadership. And I'm not putting the blame on the president. I'm actually putting the blame on the speaker and Leader Thune in the Senate. This should not be happening. And I don't think, look, as a member of Congress, we already have a low enough job approval rating. This shutdown is just going to drive everybody's approval rating that much lower.
But so you're putting the blame on the leadership of your party.
Absolutely. We control the House. We control the Senate. We have the White House. I've been vocal saying, you can use the nuclear option in the Senate. This doesn't have to be a shutdown. But what we have to do is we have to work for the American people. And our country is so divided right now. We see it all the time in every single way. It's divided in what I would say very dangerous ways. And we saw that with the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, which has upset so many people across the board. And look, when it comes to hearing from senior citizens or my own friends and neighbors and my own family members and people that voted for me, and they're just saying, Marjorie, we just really want somebody to do something about health insurance premiums. We really want our government and our leaders to actually focus on our country for a change and fix our problems. That is the message I constantly hear from my district, and I'm a representative. I don't have to be a cheerleader for my party. I have to represent my district because those are the people that hired me and sent me here. And I myself, I agree with them, and I'm pretty much over it's just drama constantly on TV. No offense, because you guys are on television, but that's all that we see in American politics now.
There's reporting that President Trump, as you know, recently called at least 2 senior Republicans to ask, and I'm quoting now from these reports, what's going on with Marjorie, end quote.
What's going on with Marjorie?
About this issue, it's obviously so personal for you.
Well, the president has my cell phone number, and he's called me many, many times. So if he wants
recently, how
I don't get into that kind of details, but he knows how to call me, and he can ask me himself. But here's the deal. There's also this, and I'm not blaming you guys, but there is a media narrative trying to say that I don't support the president. I absolutely support the president. I campaigned for him for years. But I'm also an action person, and I want my party to solve problems.
And you say if he's not getting good advice, though. You told Manu Raju, what specifically?
Well, I don't think it's good advice that a government shutdown is going to help Republicans in the midterms. I don't agree with that. I also don't think it's good advice that Republicans ignoring the health insurance crisis is going to be good for midterms. I actually think that would be very bad for midterms. And I think that just not staying focused on America First policies is detrimental as well.
Yeah, and on that note, are you concerned about the cost of living?
Very.
That the President Trump said he would lower?
The inflation crushed people in the past 4.5 years, and the costs have not come down.
But the cost hasn't come down since the Biden administration. We weren't always complaining about the cost of groceries. Donald Trump just got into office in January. I'm just really shocked by Marjorie.
Right here in Washington, D.C., the electricity bill is $100 more than it was last year, because you can look at your own bill and look at costs. Prices have not come down. That is a reality. People's wages have not gone up. That's another reality. And so Americans are continuing to have a very difficult time getting by. And I'll go a step further. I'm a mom. And so when it comes to what is affecting my adult children's lives, who are 22, 26, and 28, I'm going to be 1,000% fighting for them over any politician and any party. And I can tell you right now, that generation, they are barely making it, and they're very hopeless for their future.
So you're a mom first, a politician second.
That's right. I'm a mom first.
That's good to hear.
So I want to just ask you also about another issue you've been really outspoken about, and of course that is the Jeffrey Epstein files, wanting to release those. I know Democrats have also been calling for that, a few other Republicans as well. The Democrats are accusing Speaker Johnson of delaying the swearing in of Arizona's Democratic Congresswoman-elect because she would give the last vote needed to release those Epstein files. I'm wondering, the Speaker for his part, he has denied that. He said it's because of the shutdown. Have you spoken to him? Do you think she should be sworn in right away?
Well, I'll say it like this. I can't conclusively say if that's why the House is not in session, but the House should be in session. And the House should be in session for many reasons. We have appropriation bills that need to get passed. There is a new Democrat that's been elected that does deserve to be sworn in. Her district elected her. We have other bills that we need to be passing. And if it's to avoid the discharge petition, why drag this out? That is going to have 218 signatures. And so I say go ahead and do it and get it over with.
You know, the big news that we're all following right now is obviously the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas and Gaza, and the hostage deal that all the remaining Israeli hostages, dead and alive, will be allowed to go back to Israel. President Trump says he might be going to the region as early as this Friday. He wants to be there when this historic moment unfolds. He wants witnesses, talk to his aides, talk to the Israelis, talk to the Palestinians as well. Do you have any concerns at all that this deal could still, God forbid, fall apart?
I don't know. I certainly applaud the president. This has been one of the issues that I've campaigned on and talked about constantly. I'm very much against America's involvement in foreign wars. And the president has worked very hard on this. However, we have to see Israel and Hamas, both sides, truly cement this agreement. But I certainly hope for all involved that this definitely is a peace deal that will remain.
We all hope that, yeah.
And on July 28th, you talked about that. You said, quote, it's the most truthful and easiest thing to say that October 7th in Israel was horrific and that all hostages must be returned. But so is the genocide, humanitarian crisis, and starvation happening in Gaza. On that note, when it comes to the genocide, do you believe that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal?
I don't know if I can accuse him of being a war criminal. However, well, let's just say both issues are bad. That's why I said that. What happened on October 7th is absolutely horrific. And of course, our hearts go out to those families and those hostages that remain. But at the same time, the relentless bombing of the Palestinian people, and many of them have been just innocent people. They're not Hamas. They're literally women and children, and you can't unsee the amount of pictures and videos of children that have been blown to pieces and are they're finding them dead in the rubble. Those aren't actors. That isn't fake war propaganda. It's very real, and I think that is equally horrific. I want to see an end to it, and I think most Americans do.
I mean, with President Trump's involvement, it looks like, this first phase, a ceasefire, it's happening. We're monitoring all of that closely. Of course, it's very tenuous. I want to ask you about something else that Ted Cruz responded to. So you recently suggested on X that a, quote, foreign government or powerful people may try to kill you. Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas shared that post of yours on X, writing, quote,
wait a minute. What is this with us? If something happens to me, I ask Ali to find out which foreign government or powerful people take heinous act. Okay, Marjorie's doing a lot right now.
Crazy people keep thinking the Jews are trying to kill them. What do you say to Cruz, and what did you mean by that?
Well, first, that was an extremely ridiculous thing for Ted Cruz to say. I never said Jewish people. I'm not anti-Semitic. I don't hate any people group for their identity or who they are. So that was unbelievably low for a sitting U.S. senator to say that. But what I'm talking about is very real. I have a tremendous amount of death threats. It's documented. I have some of the highest amount of death threats as a sitting member in the House of Representatives.
Well, I can believe that because a lot of times people from the political right do, because they like to call the right Nazis and Hitler and fascists. And when you use terms like that, it makes it seem as if it's okay to harm one, right? To harm a Republican, which isn't right. So I can believe her on this part.
And when you speak about certain issues, we can watch the calls and the emails and the messages. They increase and the threats increase. And so when I say I am seriously concerned for my life, and I say if something ever happens to me, I really mean it. It's okay for me to say that. This is the time that we're living in, where we're seeing political violence, and I'm totally against it completely in every which way. But when I say something like that, and to have another Republican of my own party insult me and insinuate I'm saying something I never said is absolutely unacceptable.
Right. And I know a lot of members of Congress are getting threats, which is, you know, we can't tolerate that. But when you say the foreign government or powerful people, who specifically?
I do think it's extreme for the political right, but I can say that to be fair and unbiased in my commentary, the left probably gets this as well. But this country does have problems with people that have conservative. A lot of times Republicans will just say things, you know, a lot of Republicans are pro-life, and then they say they were anti-women rights and things like that. So, you know, I think we have to be careful with our language.
Were you alluding to there?
I'm saying anyone, any foreign government, any people of power. I'm talking about the Epstein list. This has been the most, I don't understand why. I genuinely do not understand why there's been any effort to hide this and prevent it from coming out, but because of the efforts for years now to hide it and prevent it from coming out, it certainly makes you feel afraid when you're one of the ones truly on the front lines pushing it to come out. I also serve on the Oversight Committee, and we're leading that investigation there, so I'm in.
Wait, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one that's, I know she's spoken about the Epstein files. I didn't know she was on the front line pushing for it. I really thought that was mostly Democrats. So I'm pretty shocked by Marjorie's stance. And then it's kind of interesting that she says, "Oh, I'm for Donald Trump," and she leads with that. Like, I kind of feel like that was a smokescreen.
Involved on both fronts. The Oversight Committee investigation, as well as my signatures on the discharge petition.
And you don't think Oversight's doing enough then on that?
Actually, to tell you the truth, the Oversight investigation has the power to go much further than Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna's resolution.
But they're not doing that. Why do you think that is, in your view?
Actually, well, number one, there's a government shutdown and the House is not in session, so nothing is happening. But actually, the Oversight Committee has subpoenaed a lot more information than Thomas Massey's resolution specifically calls for. But here's my stance. I'll work on this involves women who were raped. Women at 14 years old who were raped. And they say there's more people involved. I don't know how anyone in their good conscience can be against letting that information come out. So I want to help on any front that I can.
You're a courageous politician, but more important, a loving mother. Thanks very much for coming in.
But it can't just be about our kids. It has to be about, you know, the country. Where y'all at? Let me find you guys. Now, one thing about Marjorie. Wait, where are you guys? Oh, shoot. Hang on, y'all. I'm coming. That's pretty layered. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene going for continuing resolution, the CR voting for that, and for the federal government to be, you know, not be shut down. And you know, there's some things I do agree with her. With things like that, you know, the CR is a temporary spending bill used to fund the federal government, which prevents government shutdown. We need to reopen the government. There's a lot that's being happened. But with that's happening. But I find it really interesting, her stance on Epstein files and all the other things that she's talking about. The Affordable Care Act has a lot of problems. I can see y'all comments before I get out of here. If y'all have some questions for me, she goes on both sides of the fence. Carl, yeah, I'm pretty shocked by Marjorie. You should vote against the Epstein's. You would vote against the Epstein's file. I didn't say that. I'm surprised, Shredder Tainment, being a Republican, and she's what's the word I'm looking for? Y'all, my brain is getting tired. I'll just say push for President Trump. It's his first election, so I'm pretty surprised because right now we have a lot of things going on in the country. I'm not saying anything against the Epstein files, but I'm surprised that it's a Republican representative that's pushing it. So again, y'all, so that's my thoughts on Marjorie. He's lost some major supporters. Now, Marjorie said she's still for Donald Trump, but y'all know Candace Owens is another one that was pushing for Donald Trump. Candace Owens is all in a Charlie Kirk right now in the conspiracy with Tyler Robinson. That's another story for another day. But she is one that said, you know, she was embarrassed for voting for Donald Trump. I'm a conservative thinker, for those of you that don't know, conservative Republican. And that's where I stand, because I believe in traditional values, less government involvement in our life, the right to bear arms, and all those kind of things. All right. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. I shouldn't be canceled for saying that. Advocate for President Trump. Thank you, Carl. Better words, better words. You guys, but there's a lot that's going on, and I'm all over it. This government shutdown, the longest government shutdown, what was it, December 2018 to 2019 over the, what was it, the building of the wall. But you know, people, government workers getting furloughed, military not getting paid. Now, Donald Trump did talk about back pay, so maybe they'll get a nice big check. But thank you all that serve our country. So you're a fascist? Please don't use words like that. I didn't call you out your name. How am I a fascist? See, it's words like that that make it seem like it's okay to attack. I didn't call you guys out your name. I didn't say I was for a dictatorship. Cute Mango, are you just throwing things out there? Because I haven't called you guys any names. I played clips of what was happening in the world. I really didn't give any commentary on it. I said I was surprised by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, that's what I said. And I said that I was surprised at her wanting to expand the Affordable Care Act when clearly there's problems. I work in healthcare. I know what I'm talking about. There's problems with it. The co-pays are extremely high. There's problems, right? There's a lot of things. I'm not about to get into Obamacare right now. Good morning, Uncle Claude. Supporting Trump is supporting fascism. I disagree with you, but you're entitled to your opinion. You're just not entitled to your own rights. He's not a dictator. He's not a dictator. We live in a democracy. There's Congress. There's all those things. I'm not sure where you're coming from. So, Obamacare is a disaster. That's right, B. Perez. That's right. You're blindly, willfully blind, voluntarily blind. Did I not just say that I'm not, Uncle Claude, you're trolling my chat now. Did I not just say that regardless if you're a Republican or Democrat, I'm just sharing. I shared some clips. Donald Trump met with some powerful people. The government is still shut down. Marjorie Taylor Greene did make breaking news. Okay, there's a lot of things that's going on, so I'm not really sure, you know. So I say, okay. Steve, good morning. How are you doing? Y'all have any questions for me without the name calling? I will be more than willing to entertain you, but that's why I just can't, you guys. I was also surprised by Chicago and the judge ruling for the National Guard not to come out there because there's obviously problems there. Washington, D.C. is safer now today. That's proven. Crime is lower. So why wouldn't you want that for Chicago? Why wouldn't you want that for Portland? I'm just not understanding these things. If we're for American people, then we should be for their safety. And that's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. That is an American thing. I would love to see this country safer. All right, you guys. Brown, I hear you. I hear you. Hang on. Behind my chat. So you guys, I will continue to pray. DC crime was at an all-time low. What DC are you talking about, Becca? All right, you guys. I see some of y'all are not that happy with me. But I'm going to say that I love you guys. I love you guys very much. I'm still shocked about Marjorie. I'm shocked about Marjorie. Okay. Can't I be shocked? Hang on, you guys. I'm looking for something. Oh, aren't you guys kind of shocked by Marjorie? I don't know. What's the...
each other, each party saying it's the other's fault. Now the Senate keeps voting on competing funding bills, doesn't have support in the
everything that's just for educational phrase purposes only, so we can have civil conversations about it. Okay, there's no reason to attack. I don't care if you're from the left or the right or you're liberal or whatever. You are what you are.
Where are we at this point in terms of ending this shutdown? Any sign that there is going to be some bipartisan agreement?
No. That's the short answer, Savannah.
Thank you, Ryan.
I mean, they really have not made any progress. I mean, there are these kind of sidecar conversations with some bipartisan lawmakers. There was a dinner last night, but none of it has reached the leadership level. The two sides are very much entrenched in their previous positions that basically got us into this shutdown.
Derek, thank you.
The only thing that I would say is even slightly different is that prior to the shutdown, Republicans weren't even interested in talking about healthcare in any sort of meaningful way.
Please be kind to the trans people. I do believe in being kind to them. They do deserve love and respect. But you can't force me to call people something that they're not, and you can't force me to say that they belong in women's sports if they're a man. But I will absolutely be kind to everybody because I love you just for who you are, okay? I love people.
You're starting to see the slow creep of them introducing a healthcare argument into the conversation, but they're still insistent that that real negotiation can't happen until after the shutdown ends. So we're still basically in the same place we were before this whole thing started.
And perhaps the Republican who's talking most about health care is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Has been very vocal about her concerns during the shutdown and those premiums going up. We mentioned yesterday how she sees.
Kevin, again, I answered that when I said I'm for traditional values. That's between a man and a woman, but I do believe that there should be a civil thing to protect your property. I think I answered that question.
To be breaking with fellow Republicans when it comes to this issue. You actually spoke with her one-on-one. What did you learn?
Yeah, it was a pretty wide-ranging interview, Joe, and if we thought that she was going to back away from those comments that she made on social media from the night before, we were definitely wrong. She doubled down. She truly believes that her party is handling this situation incorrectly. She believes that healthcare is a real crisis in this country, and the time to talk about it is now. Listen to what she told me.
This is the number one issue I hear about in my district. Health insurance premiums are unaffordable, not only for people on the ACA, but also families, maybe small business owners that buy their own health insurance. And with the cost of living today, I think it's reached a boiling point. I am personally against the government shutdown. I really want to be doing appropriations. I believe in that process. That's our job, bringing taxpayer dollars back to our districts that help our communities, roads, water projects, you name it.
And a couple of other ways that she's breaking with her party on this particular issue. She disagrees with Speaker Mike Johnson. She thinks the House should.
For those of you that said I'm biased, I did Fox, CNN, and NBC. I listened, okay? C-SPAN and all that stuff. I try to find the actual words of the person
in session right now negotiating
morning,
this
Jerome.
issue. She also thinks that the Senate, if they can pass judges with a straight party line vote, should also be able to vote on a straight party line vote to open up the government, suggesting they should go nuclear, as it says, and break the filibuster to get the government back open.
We thank you for watching, and remember.
Good morning, LaDon. Gay rights asked for the same rights. Woo, you guys said a lot. Okay, you guys, I have to get up in the morning. It's past 3 o'clock. I'm going to pray for you guys. I'll pray for the country as you guys, this conversation was not to cause division. Big hugs. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I will feel free to leave a comment after the video. Or if you want me to cover something else, leave your comment after the video. I hope we're still friends. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank y'all for hanging out with me. Bye-bye.